everybody, it's Audrey Marine. I'm back for another episode of Flosstube. This is my 5th. I can hardly believe it. It is August 5th, and it's been 3 weeks since my last Flosstube, and it has been a busy 3 weeks. We had, my husband and I with the kids, we had planned to go to New York City just for a few days, and we did that. But from the time that I did my last Flosstube 3 weeks ago to today, we also planned and made a trip to Disney World. So that was thrown in there rather unexpectedly. My husband came into the kitchen one day. I was just like at the counter talking to the kids, and he comes in and he's like, "Can I borrow Mom for a minute?" I was like, "Oh God, what did you do?" And he took me into the office, and there's the Walt Disney World website pulled up. I'm like, oh my God. We said we would wait like 2 or 3 years until our next trip because we took them last year. And he's like, "But I keep reading about how there's nobody there and we gotta go." And so we went just for a few days. But it made for a really exhausting week and a half there, because we went to New York for just a few days. We left for New York on a Monday and returned home on a Thursday, and then slept in our own beds Thursday night, Friday night, and then Saturday morning we woke the kids up early and said, "We're going to Disney World." And unlike when we did this last year we surprised them the same way, but they were like, "Why did you wake us up so early?" Because they like knew that Disney World was a thing but hadn't been there, didn't quite understand. But this year when we woke them up stupid early, we're like, "We're going to Disney World." And they're like, "Oh, yay." But they were still so sleepy, but at least they understood like what was coming, and they got it. But it made for an exhausting 3 weeks. And I did get some stitching done on the plane because we flew. We didn't drive. Oh my God, I'm told Brian I'm never driving to Florida again. I'm certainly not driving to New York either from Indianapolis. But I got some stitching done on the plane. And then before we had gone to New York, I got some stitching done. So I actually have some finishes to show you. I have finishes to show you. I've got some new purchases, and I've got a new start. But the finishes, believe it or not, I have 5 finishes to show you. Now, they're all very small, so you think 5 finishes is like amazing. But they were all started, well, I should say 4 were started and completed in these last 3 weeks. And the 5th one I had only started a few days before I did my last Flosstube. So I think I'm doing pretty good. So I'll show those, and then I'll show some purchases. I even have some things that my son Maurice has worked on. And then, yeah, then we'll get into plans. So let me show you my purchases. And I feel like I have plenty of things to show and maybe some stories to tell or whatever, but I don't know that this is going to be an overly long video. Ryan is in Nashville this weekend. I have to think about where he is. He's in Nashville this weekend. There is an IndyCar event there. The Music City GP is what it's called. It's on the streets of Nashville. And anyway, he's there for that, but also the support series. Like, in addition to IndyCar being there this weekend, they're also running SRO, sports car racing, and he is the lead commentator for that series on their online stream. So he works as a pit reporter for IndyCar Radio, and he does commentating on sports car racing for SRO. So the fact that they're both at the same place this weekend means he gets to do both things, which means he's very busy this weekend. Yeah, so we got home from Disney World very, very late on Wednesday night, and then Thursday morning, like 8 hours later, he's in the car on his way to Nashville. So, and he made it there. I know that. I don't really know anything else, but I know that he's there. So it's good. Anyway, so the kids are out watching a movie, and I told them that, you can watch your movie and you can have snacks and play and do whatever, but don't come knocking on my door unless unless the house is on fire. But So I will show you the things that I have finished. I showed this pattern a while ago as one of my like recent purchases. I did get this at House of Stitches, I believe. Yes, the sticker says House of Stitches. So when I went to Chicago to visit some friends just for a like overnight thing, I stopped in LaPorte, Indiana, and stopped at House of Stitches on the way to their house. And this is one of the things that I got. And it's so funny. That was not that long ago, but I was rifling through my patterns, like trying to decide something to start. And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot I bought this. But I was like so excited when I saw it again. So I did that, and I'll show you my finish here. Now this is on, I believe this is on Serial Starter. I think it must be, because I know this is a number 12 Stitch Co. linen. And I'm trying to decide if it was Antiquity or Serial Starter, but I know I did a different Brenda Gervais on the Antiquity, and it took up the whole piece because I only bought fat 8s. And that's another thing. I bought fat 8s and have been buying 8s because I'm like, well, then I can see what the color is really, and then I'm not stuck with a bunch that I don't like. But it's like, as long as it's a Zweigart base, you know, you'll find something to do with it. It'll be nice to stitch on. So I decided I don't want to buy any more 8s, and I don't even know if I want to buy, I mean, I guess halves would be really big, but I'm thinking, anyway, I'll show you something later that I like trimmed down to try to get some usable salvage off of it, because I thought, well, if I stitched it on this whole piece of fabric in the middle, then you'd have this huge margin, this, you know, huge band around the outside that you don't really need. So can I cut it in a way that allows me to use a bit of this fabric for something else? And then I realized, you know, I should have just stitched it in the middle and wasted the fabric. So anyway, all this to say that I think in the future I need to just buy larger pieces of fabric so that it is easier to manipulate how I place things, rather than trying to fit a couple things on an 1/8 or even a 1/4. So this is the Sewing Bird by Brenda Gervais. This is an older pattern. I think I saw that it was from about 10 years ago or something. And now I'm trying to, copyright 2013. Yes, so it's about 10 years old. But it's still really cute. You know, I don't think it looks dated at all or anything. And I used the called for, except this red was supposed to be a Valdani, but I just used another over dye that I had. And I think it turned out really nice. And this only took me a couple days. I mean, I didn't do much else those days, but I thought it turned out really nice. This peach color, I think it is peach actually. I was afraid that it wasn't gonna pop, but I like the subtlety. Like you can tell that there's a border there, but it's not very loud. Anyway, I thought that turned out really nice. So it's cute. And then the next one that I decided to do was a Plum Street. So this is something I purchased earlier this year as well, not too long ago. Count twice, stitch once. I got this because I liked the saying. It reminded me of, I don't know if you guys, like my mom loves This Old House, and I grew up, like when I was growing up, we had like 3 channels, 3, 6, and 13. And so we would watch a lot of PBS, and This Old House was on PBS, and we would watch it. So you'd watch the 1-hour episode of This Old House, and then would come the New Yankee Workshop with Norm Abram, and he was all about, you know, measuring twice and cutting once. He made the most amazing things, and he'd always talk about his safety glasses. So I think about him sometimes. Anyway, so I liked the phrase count twice, stitch once. I thought the flowers in the baskets were really cute, but again, the lady, I was like, I don't know if I really care for her, but I stitched it as it was charted. I put the lady on there. I do think she's, I don't know, just a little odd. But in stitching this, oh, and I should say that I stitched it on the bottom of this piece of Serial Starter. I measured out. I was like, okay, well, how much margin is mom gonna need to make these into little pillows? I try to figure that out. But in stitching this, I noticed this little frog that I didn't notice when I bought the pattern. And he's frogging, he's pulling out a stitch from the basket handle. I thought that was so funny, his little tongue. So he's cute. So I do like it, but count twice, stitch once. There is a mistake in this. And I did notice it as I was doing it, but when I noticed it, I would have had to rip out not only the mistake, but also something else that I stitched sort of onto the mistake. And so I'm not gonna tell you where it is. But I thought, of course I made this mistake on count twice, stitch once, and I could hear Eartha Kitt saying it's called a cruel irony. I could hear that. So, I mean, it doesn't affect the overall design. I mean, I bet you can't tell. You'd really have to examine it. And actually, I thought it was funny. It was ironic that I made that mistake, and so I didn't just leave it in there because I didn't want to rip it out, but I thought it would be fun. And like, I make mistakes in every pattern, right? Surely I make mistakes in every pattern. I don't think everything is perfect. Okay, so I got those two done, and each of those only took 2 or 3 days. I got them done pretty quickly. But you know, this sewing bird and then this one, they have a lot of negative space. So it wasn't too bad. And if you can hear the cat whining at the door, I'm sorry. She's got 2 other people in the house that she can bother, and of course she wants to bother me. Okay, the next finishes I have are from this book, Keeper of the Pins. Now, before I started the 2 here that I have, my son Maurice, who is 9, he had asked to try stitching on linen. And he had done a couple things on perforated paper, but he saw me stitching on linen and he asked if he could try it. And thankfully I had some 32 count. So I set him up with that, and he did some stitching, and I showed his progress, like what he had started on my last video. But actually since then, he not only finished it, but I was able to send it to my mom in Michigan, and she sewed it into a little pillow. So this is 32 count. It's a cream colored linen, and he chose a red. I think this is 817. It's a DMC. And then he chose a green and then picked out like a brownish, it is a brown, for the pins. And then put these little beads on for the pin tops. Yeah. So he's so delighted. And he's already started something else. So it's so funny though, because he stitched this, we sent it off to my mom, he finished this little pillow, or she finished this little pillow, and we got it back in the mail. He was so excited. And then I took this book from him so that I could stitch things out of this book that I purchased. And you know, I'm working out of it, and he's like, oh, you're using my book? I'm like, oh, it's my book. I bought it. But yeah, so he did the alphabet one here, and then I want to do that one eventually, but I thought I don't want to do what he just did immediately, so let's pick something a little different. So I decided to do this one, and then I did this one as well. And I used mostly called for, but for the brown and for the red, they were supposed to be DMC, but I chose this oilcloth. And it's funny, Maurice was helping me wrap these around one of those thread winders. Oh, so he could like cut it into these perfect lengths. And he's wrapping this oilcloth, and he's like, this is ugly. I was like, thanks, kid. And he just keeps wrapping it, and I was like, well, I wanted to pick a brown that would work for a spool color. And he's like, oh yeah, that works really well, but I still don't like it. I'm like, okay, thanks. And then for the tomatoes and for the red of the letters, it was supposed to be this, I think it was DMC 22, which when I showed the kids, they were like, that looks like tomato soup. And it was perfect. It totally looks like tomato soup. You know, like kind of that dark, kind of orangish, faded red. It was weird. Anyway, I didn't want that look. And it's funny because here in these photos, it looks like a brighter red. But when you look at DMC 22, it is not a brighter red. This is what I chose. This is ribbon red, I believe. Yes, this is Classic Colorworks ribbon red. And I had purchased 2 skeins of this to do something else that I haven't gotten to. And then this is an XJU Designs color, I believe. I think this is light nougat or nougat. And these are just going to be made into little pin pillows. Now, I haven't put the beads on the top of the pins yet. I had selected beads out of my stash, just out of stuff that I had. I found these matte cream beads. Oh my God, that cat. I don't know if you can hear her. I hope you can't. I had selected these little seed beads with a matte finish, and they were cream colored. But when I stitched them on to this 40 count, they looked massive. So I think I need petite seed beads to put on the tops of these pins. But this is a lot of dense stitching. This was a little monotonous. So what I would do, I started with the top of the spool and then did some of this cream color, and then I'd stitch a tomato or two and then do some more cream and then do another tomato and stitch more cream. And that way I kind of broke up the monotony. And then this one, this is, you know, mostly letters, and it went pretty quickly. So I'm happy with how this turned out. And I was looking through the fabrics that I had. I had 2 color options that I was deciding between. There's another hummingbird. I wonder if it's the same one. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm sorry, I was distracted. I know I did that on an earlier video, but I swear there's a hummingbird there. Maybe it's just the one that comes, because we have roses in the front. See? I don't. Well, anyway, I was deciding between this color and another like lighter cream color, but I thought that this cream of the spool would pop much better on this darker fabric. So that's why I chose this. And the called for fabric, it says called for fabric is Vintage Country Mocha, which is like that generic, I mean, you know what it is. Generic beige tan color. So, and these were stitched almost exclusively on airplanes. Yeah, stitching on airplanes, at airports. I have done that a lot this year. All right, so that's finish 3 and 4. And my next ones that I'll do on that same fabric, I'm just gonna do them all on that same piece of fabric and then send them to my mother and she can cut them out, right, Ma? Yeah. My next one, I think I'm gonna do, well, this one, I have plenty of buttons. Oh, so another thing is, Maurice, he stitched this alphabet one, got it turned into a pillow. And actually before we sent it off to my mom, it was stuck in my purse, because I was like, I had to mail it. But I took him to Always in Stitches in Noblesville, and it was nice that I had it in my purse, because when he was running around looking at stuff, then it became apparent to the people working there that actually he was picking out things for himself, and he's a 9-year-old boy, and so that wasn't expected. It was probably like, oh, poor kid, he's, you know, drug along by his mom to the stitchy shop. But he was very excited. So there was a nice gentleman there. His name was Peter, I believe. And he stopped and said, well, how did you get into stitching? And could hardly believe that he was stitching on linen. He was like, I didn't start on 32 count linen. And he said, Peter said that, you know, when he was Maurice's age, he didn't even know that cross stitching was a thing. So yeah, I think in that way, Maurice has definitely a head start on a lot of people. But Maurice picked out a couple things, and I'll show you. So he finished this. He was working on this and kept asking me as he was working on this. He was like, well, Mom, when can we go to a stitchy shop? When can we go to a stitchy shop? And I didn't want him to get too excited and like start on something else and start on something else. Start on something else, Laura. So I said, okay, well, when you finish this, I'll take you to a stitchy shop. And he's like, oh, okay, I gotta finish it. And then he finished it in like 2 more days. And I was like, oh crap, well, I guess I gotta take you. So we went, and it was good because that was completely finished and we were able to show some people. And oh my goodness, the old ladies who came out of the woodwork to see him and his stitching. It was so funny. It was so funny. So they came out and were like, oh, what's your name and how old are you and how long have you been stitching? And you're so cute. And you know. He had like a nice sweater on that day and he looked like somebody took care of him. It was nice. But he picked out 2 things. He picked out these, which I was so pleased because, you know, even as adults and even if you have completed big projects, you see things and maybe you bite off more than you can chew. But Maurice totally, you know, he was very aware of his limitations and he sought out really small things. And so he saw this one first. He loves watermelon. And red is his favorite color. So like, this was a no-brainer. So he saw this one and he picked it on the DMCs. But the DMCs at Always in Stitches are on this round display. And it's really tall. It's like 6 feet tall or something. And he needed some help. Sometimes he was able to find the colors that he needed. But I had to help him sometimes. Anyway, I gave him the option to look at the overdyed threads, but he seemed completely uninterested. He just wanted to get the called for, which was great for me because DMC is cheaper. But he selected everything that he needed for this. And then sort of in the same area, there was this, there were some of these 9 patch. Apparently there's one for every month. And so he picked this one because it was watermelon as well. So then he was like, well, I can have them go together and, you know, everything goes together. And my mom, you know, he showed her, he called her, he FaceTimed her, showed her, and she was talking about turning these into pillows as well. But as he's stitching this, because he has started this, he's got the border done, and then I think one little cherry done so far. But he's kind of talking about maybe framing them, or I don't know. And I told him, I said, you don't have to know now. I said, when you finish it, you can think about it then. But even after you have finished it, you can sit on it a while and decide if you want it to be turned into a pillow or if you want it to be framed or whatever you want, we'll do it. Because I'm just amazed that he's finishing things and he's excited about it. He's excited about it. And now he can start and secure threads by himself and then tie things off by himself. So now the only time he needs help is if he gets a knot, which isn't very often. And actually he got really excited the other night because he got a knot and then he got it out himself because it was just one of those loop knots. And if you stick your needle through and kind of like gently tug, then you can get it out, right? So that's what it was. And because I told him, like, if you get one of these, this should be a pretty foolproof way to get rid of it. But if you've got like a really bad knot, then we might just have to do some cutting. But he was so excited when he got rid of his first knot. So I will show you my last finish and then we'll go on to, I guess, my new start. So I had shown you my start of Elizabeth Wood last time, and now I finished it. And it's tiny because it's on 56 count. It's on 56 count linen. This is Old Sheep by XJU Designs. And this is, I used the 103s by Auvera. And I used the called for, which is 523. Yes, 523. And this is tiny. This is tiny. What is this, like 6 by 6 or something like that this turned into? But actually, I think I used a pretty good amount of floss because the last few lengths I pulled off, you could kind of see the plastic spool through the thread coming through. So I plan on doing another sampler, another small red sampler on this piece of linen because I have all this side here. I gave myself a pretty wide margin here. This is about a 3-inch margin. And I think if I had done 2 or 2.5, then it would have been, you know, I would have had a more generous room over here for something. But I have found a couple that will work on this small size. I'm thinking, I think it's Mary Cornwall or Ruth Gibb. And Mary Cornwall, I believe, takes 523 as well. So I was kind of trying to decide, do I want to do Mary Cornwall, that particular piece? It is like more rectangular. I think it would work really well here. And I'd have plenty of extra space when I cut them to have them framed. But I thought, well, do I want to stitch Mary Cornwall in 523 and have 2 small samplers in the same color on the same color linen? Or do I want to change the color for Mary Cornwall? Or do I just want to stitch Ruth Gibb, which calls for a different red? Am I overthinking this? Yes, I am. Yes, I am. But in stitching this, I found that I can stitch on 56 count. This is a light color, so I think that helped me out a lot. This is just an off-white creamy color. But in stitching on 56 count, I need good light. I need good natural light, preferably. And I do really like stitching with the 103s. So moving forward, I think for everything on 40 count, I'll continue to use cottons. And I really like the overdyed cottons, but I still love DMC as well. But on my 45, 46 and higher, I think I'm just going to use 103s. I know that they're more expensive, but you get a lot of thread on that spool. And I like that I don't have to separate things, right? You know, you get the overdyed threads or the DMC, whatever it may be, and you cut them and you put them on the thread drops, and it's easy enough to just pull one thread off when you need it. But just having that little spool, hold the spool in my hand like this, and then I pull the length off like this, and the spool just spins in my hand, and I can take as little or as much as I want and just snip it, and that's it. That's my length. I really like that. I like how it stitches. I like how it feels. So I really like the 103s. It is an investment though, because I've got charts that I have purchased and charts that my mom has purchased as well for me. And I think, oh, you know, this one takes 20 colors. And of course, some of the colors you only need like this much of it, but thinking 20 colors, each spool is $3.80 plus tax. You know, you're looking at like $80 for thread. But then I think, well, then I have all that thread for my next project. So I don't need to talk myself into buying 103s. Like this is what I'm gonna do. I am gonna just buy 103s, but I have to carefully select like what project am I moving on to next, because this only took one color. So you know, this chart was $25, $30, something like that. But I only had to buy one spool, right? Yeah. Okay, so speaking of charts that take a lot of 103s, I have finally started Hannah Campbell. This is a Hands Across the Sea pattern. I bought this a couple months ago, shortly after it was released. I saw it, I fell in love with it. I called the attic. I said, please send it to me. And they did, and it's beautiful. I love it. And I have started it. Now this is what I was talking about earlier when I said that I had a piece of fabric that I tried to cut. I tried to measure how big the finished piece would be and then arrange it so that I could cut off a usable piece. So this is my start of Hannah Campbell. Now that's the top. That pattern right there, that is the top. The reason I started so low is because there is enough room lengthwise here to do the whole thing. But also up here, do you see right here? There is a very fat length of linen here that is very noticeable, and I didn't want that to be anywhere near, I didn't want to have to stitch over it, and I also didn't want it to be within the frame when I finish this piece. Now, this piece of legacy linen that I got from the attic was about 2 feet by 2 feet when they sent it to me. And I opened it up and I was like, that's way too big. And I don't need to deal with all that extra fabric, you know, 23 inches by 24 inches when on 45, 46 count, the design is only gonna be about 10 1/4 by 12 1/2. I was like, I don't need all that extra fabric. So I measured and I measured and I measured, and then I cut so that I would have this length left. And this is a really awkward piece, right? But you can get, I figured I could get 2 smalls on this 45 count legacy linen, right? But in cutting it and then beginning my stitching, I've given myself all sorts of anxiety. And the color on this is not showing up very well. There, that's better. That's more what it looks like. So I will have about a 2-inch margin on each side, but it doesn't look like it. I stitch and I keep measuring. I'm like, okay, well, there's about 3 inches going this way and 3-ish inches going this way. And am I gonna have enough? Yes, like I measured it like 4 times after starting it, and it's fine. It's fine width-wise. It's really fine length-wise, because I'm gonna have like 3 inches at the bottom or something, maybe more than that. And then obviously I have way more than I need up here. But this frays like a you-know-what. And so, and I can't serge it. I don't have a serger. So I just have to be very careful. But you know what? One thing that brings me comfort is I remember an old episode. Well, maybe it's not that old. I don't know. I watched them in the wrong order and I don't remember when was what. But I remember Brenda, from Brenda and the Serial Starter, she was talking about getting a kit for something, and people were concerned because the fabric that they received only allowed them like a 1 or 1.5 inch margin or something. And she was like, you can do it, but if you're not comfortable, then you can, you know, get yourself a larger piece of linen. So this, I should have a 2-inch margin. And so I'm thinking, as long as it's enough for the framer to deal with, then once it's in a frame, it's never coming out of that frame, right? So I just need to be careful as I'm stitching this, not to pull any more off of the sides here. Now, when I pull it back like this, you can really see the color of the fabric very nicely. This is Thai iced tea. I messed that up last time I said it. And so many different bright, crazy colors. When you look at the pattern, it looks overwhelmingly red, right? But it's red and it's hot pink, and we've got like some light, bright blue in here and this nice olive green and stuff. So there we go. That's a little better. Yeah. So I started this yesterday afternoon. This is several hours of stitching. And I was like, oh, this is coming along great. And then I closed the book and I looked at it again. And I was like, oh my God, I have so much to go. Because I've only done this little bit here. This is what I've done. And I guess for a day, a long day, I did a lot of stitching yesterday. For a long day, that's pretty good. So I hope that maybe in about a week I can finish this top border. Because I did some math. I was like, well, if I did this in one day and I stitched the same for the next 4 days, then I should finish the top border in 4 days. And so I was like, well, what if I give myself a week to finish this top border? And of course, who the heck knows what's going to happen? Am I actually going to have the time to do this? But another thing I found, so I knew that this alphabet here was stitched over 1, and that's fine. I'm not too worried about stitching over 1. My eyesight is okay. But with good light, I don't think I should have a problem. But I also found that these little birds here are stitched over 1, and I think these letters down here are stitched over 1, and I kind of wonder what else I'm going to find that's stitched over 1 as I go through this. But it's really pretty, and I think when I finish it, I'll be very happy with it. So I've got that going. This legacy linen, I'm not blown away by. I don't know if I feel that it's harder to stitch on than the Zweigart just because of my lighting situation last night, because I prefer to stitch with natural light, but you kind of run out of it, right? And yesterday I started this in the afternoon and it was already kind of overcast, and so I had to rely on this lamp I have in the living room, which is not the greatest. But as far as I know, I haven't made any mistakes, and I did, you know, get this much done. So I guess in that way it must be okay to stitch on. And I am keeping it in my bag from Stitch Folk. So before she put, before Barry put the listings on her Etsy shop for these, she had some bags. What were those? Oh, the French General bags, and they were like, had the Paris or the Marseille or whatever different French cities on them. But I didn't manage to get one of those. It was so overwhelming. She had all the listings up, and I'm looking at these things, and then I click on it and it says it's already in like 77 carts, and I'm like, but what? And so I thought, I can't make a decision. I'm not going to try to steal one of these bags from somebody who maybe actually knows that they definitely really want it. I'm going to wait because I had seen months ago, she said something about posting tomato bags at the end of June. And I was like, I'll just wait for the tomato bags. And I did. And you just buy a pre-order listing and you get what you get, whatever combination of fabrics for the tomato, the strawberry, the top, the sides, whatever. But she said it was going to be like a blackbird panel here, a tomato strawberry in the center, and then as far as the other fabrics, you just get what you get. But this fabric, it's funny, I was considering using this fabric for another, like backing another project that I want to do. So I get to see a whole swath of it here. It was very pretty. So this was pricey, it was, but her stitching is very nice here. I mean, this is done by machine, obviously, but just her cutting this out and everything, I can't imagine how many hours went into every single bag here. And I'm very happy with it. It's pretty stiff. Like I can tell that she put some lining in it and stuff. And it's so big. It's much bigger than my other bags by a couple inches here. And so when I put Hannah Campbell in, I don't have to worry about it. There's a pack of needles in there. I don't have to worry about it getting caught on the zipper or anything, because I had another bag that I had put Hannah Campbell in, and it was like, you know, and it was gonna get cut up by the zipper every time I took it in or put it in and took it out. So I'm glad to have this much larger bag for my larger books. So that was, so as I said, I ordered that, at the end of, I think it was at the end of June, beginning of July, whenever she posted those. And it just arrived in the mail on Saturday. I was like, oh, I want it, but gotta be patient, right? It did come. And then also for Hannah Campbell, I had shown these boxes that my mom bought. So I don't know if you guys have seen those Tidy Made boxes. You can only find them used on eBay because they're old. They're like spool holders, acrylic or plastic or something. But these boxes are made by Gutermann for their own spools, which are the same size as the 103s. And my mom bought me some of these, and they perfectly hold these 103 spools, these Auvera Soie spools. And this is my Hannah Campbell set. And easy enough, keeps them clean, keeps them organized. And the lid is not secured, so don't think you can just like toss it into a bag. But if you have one of those flat bottom boxy bags or something, I think this would sit very nicely in there. So I'm happy with that. And again, I apologize if you hear the cat, because I cannot tell you how badly I want to go and bang on the door and send her away, because she was scratching the heck out of the door. And it is annoying me. Okay, so let's move on to other purchases, shall we? Oh, when I took Maurice to Always in Stitches in Noblesville. He picked out his watermelon patterns, but I picked out a few things too. We were walking around, and one thing that I saw were some patterns from with my needle for things that you could stitch to put around these antique spools. And I saw two, and I was just like, well, which one do I like better? I guess I'll go with this one. But then I had picked out a few things, and then Maurice was like dragging me over to this other section. Mom, come look at this. And then as I passed this other hutch sort of thing, I saw this one that I liked better than the other one I had picked out. So this kind of reminds me of, you know, old red samplers, right? And you've got options here, different sizes, which is good because my spool is just a little bit smaller than what they call for, what they suggest. But I figured I can pick whatever pattern I want, whatever size I want, and then I can just stitch it on a higher thread count, right? And I can stitch it on 40 or even 45, 46, because they call for 36 count linen to work on this size. So I thought, well, I can pick anything and just do it on 40 and it should make all the difference. But I thought this was cute, and that shouldn't take too long. I just kind of have to figure out my linen and thread color combination here, and then I can clean this up and stick it on. So I thought that was a nice find. And then I found this. This is Antique Bunnies and Baskets by Shakespeare's Peddlers. She's got others as well. The scissors one I want, but they didn't have it at the store, so I'll have to like order it from Teresa. I was on Kitten Stitcher when she announced that new exclusive she has with Plum Street, the Stars and Stripes. I really want that one, and I had it in my cart, but then if you've been on to Kitten Stitcher, you know that Teresa has recently suffered a loss, and so she closed down the shop for a while. And I don't need anything new right now, so I figured I would give it another few weeks or maybe even a couple months, and then I would place an order because, of course, you know, you still want to support her and her shop and her designs and things, but I know she's, based on what she's put on her website, kittenstitcher.com, I know she's been suffering. So it's like, how best do we support Teresa? I don't know. But I found this at Always in Stitches, so I grabbed it. It was $8. And I thought I could use the same fabric thread combination that I used for my Cuckoo Bird sampler, which I should have readily available. Oh, yep, right here. Because I really like this brown on brown, and I have a bit of this left somewhere. And even if I can't find it, I know this is Wallaby by Number 12 Stitch Co. And then the thread is Chestnut. Is it Weeks? I think it's Weeks Chestnut. So I thought this in a similar combination would be really cute. Or maybe this same chestnut on a slightly lighter fabric, so that way like they're tied together with the thread, but not too matchy-matchy. And then when I get the scissors one, maybe change it up one other way. I don't know. You know, I imagine I'm going to stitch all these. Then Mom's going to turn them into pillows, and then I can stick them in a bowl. Right, Ma? Yeah. So, I've got plans. So that was another purchase. And then this was a larger book that I bought at Always in Stitches. This is Blackbird's Winds of Autumn. I love Halloween. I'm not going to say that fall is my favorite season. I don't really care. But I love Halloween. Halloween is my favorite holiday. And I have some Halloween decorations, but not enough. And stitching things and littles for myself, I'm really excited to do that. So just on the cover, I mean, I really liked this October 31st. I like this berry with the big old raven on it, and he's got different motifs on him. There's like a little house. But within the book, there are several more patterns because they only show 6 here, but there are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, at least it looks like 11 or 12. So, and Maurice and I were driving home from Always in Stitches, and he's like rifling through the bag. He's like, this is all mine. I was like, yeah, kid, right? Because you're going to do everything in there. But he was like, wow, this is really big. And I was like, well, there are, you know, a dozen items in there. But it was funny listening to him talk about what he was looking through. And then again, that same moment that Maurice like pulled me into a different section of the store, and I saw this just randomly and had to put back the other piece that was supposed to go around stools. I put that one back so I could get this one. I had to do that real quick. But then also in that same little hutch, they had this. And I didn't even really have time to look at it. I was just like, oh, it's cute and Valentine's, whatever. And I just snagged it. Well, it wasn't that much. And this is just a bunch of littles. So I thought, you know, I'm stitching Hannah Campbell, and she's going to take me a while. And I'm still in the middle of stitching Spring Quaker by Lila Studio. I have the border all done, but I need to do the part in the center. So between those two big projects, I'll have my hands full with large items, samplers. So I will sort of in between stitch some smalls. I've been able to stitch smalls and get them done pretty quickly, and I'm happy with that. So I think as long as I continue to actually use my patterns and stitch, I have no problem. I don't feel bad about buying patterns for smalls. And you know, this one, it's 5 patterns. I'm not going to do all 5. Am I really going to do all 5? It's the same thing with this Blackbird book. Am I really going to do all 12 of these? Probably not. But I figure if I do, you know, 1 or 2 of these and maybe a few of those Blackbirds, then the whole thing will have been worth it, right? Not too worried about it. This one with the tulips up here, I really like that. And then this little birdie here, he's cute. And this thing with the key, I mean, there's really hardly anything to it. And I did look through the instructions for this. You know, she tells you what boxes to buy and how to finish things. So this is Mary Valentine's handwork, and this is a Brenda Gervais. So it's funny, when I picked this up, I was like, I didn't even see who it was by. I was just like, oh, that's cute. Okay, gotta get it. And then like follow my 9-year-old into the quilt section because he found something else. Anyway, so good purchases there. Happy with everything. And then when we got back from Walt Disney World, one of the kids went out to check the mail, comes back and was like, Mom, what did you order from eBay? I was like, I didn't order anything from eBay. Well, Mom, what did you get from House of Stitches? I didn't get anything from House of Stitches. Well, guess what? My mother did. She ordered some things. So she ordered some more Itty Bitty Kitty. And, you know, it's August, so it's practically Halloween. So we're getting ready for Halloween, Thanksgiving. This is one that this is the Sweetheart Tree. This is part of the Itty Bitty Kitty series. She had tried to order this some other time and they were sold out. I don't remember who that was from, but maybe it was 1, 2, 3 Stitch. I think that's what it was. And then got me this one, Itty Bitty Kitty. And this is one I had seen probably a year or so ago, and I loved the fence with a little heart in it and the pumpkins. So cute. So this was on my list. So good job, Mom. So cute. And then this is another Halloween. This isn't exactly Itty Bitty Kitty, but it's another black cat and a pumpkin. Also, our spider friend here is missing some legs, so I'm gonna put some more legs on him. Same with these guys. Why do they only have 4 legs? And I know you think, well, it's tiny. Maybe putting 8 legs on there is very awkward. But I have stitched tiny spiders with 8 legs. Get them all on there. This guy has 6 legs. He has 6 legs. Maybe Garfield got to him and maimed him. If you guys read Garfield comics, I read a lot of that when I was growing up. And it's funny because, so I have all my, you know, the Scholastic Book Fair. Oh, Scholastic Book Fair. So I would get the, you know, Dear America and also Garfield comics from Scholastic Book Fair. And I still have all those books. And this was probably a year or 2 ago. Kids are upstairs, they're in bed, but they have book time before they have to do lights out. And I just hear this cackling. I'm like, what is going on? Like, what are they laughing about? I go upstairs, and it's Rupert, and he is just like peeing himself laughing. He is laughing so hard. I'm like, what are you laughing at? And he's got this Garfield book open, and he's pointing to this one strip, and I about died because it was one of the same strips that that got me when I was a kid. You know, Garfield's, he's all crazed on coffee, and he slams down his mug and he says, "Bean me." And John says something about cutting him off or whatever. I don't remember exactly, but it was so funny that he was cackling, just dying of laughter at the same strip that had gotten me when I was a kid. And I still think it's funny. So, and then, so Mom got me all those, this, and this, and this, and this from House of Stitches in LaPorte, Indiana. And then these two items she found on eBay. So this Thanksgiving, which I think is going to be turned into, you know, these ones are going to be turned into little small pillows like my other ones, which I should have gotten off the doorknob there, but oh well. And then this is a Just Nan. And Just Nan makes, she makes really cute sampler patterns, and I like her Halloween. She uses a lot of bright oranges and lime greens and purples and black, and I just like how everything pops. And in fact, a while ago I finished this. I was going to save this to show you around Halloween time, but let me pull it out since I have my finishes here. I pulled out that cuckoo bird, so the box is open. I finished this, gosh, earlier this year, and I did it in just a few days because it's so small. But this is a Just Nan. I think this is called Ghoulies and Goblins or something like that. I'll have to pull the pattern out. But this was really quick to stitch. It's so cute. You know, cats, pumpkins, ghosts. I like how these little ghosts are just like popping out of here. It's just their heads with a little wispy top. So cute. This witch's head is kind of scary, but I was like, I'll just stitch it as it's charted, and actually it's super cute. I like how this turned out. So I like Just Nan's Halloween stuff. And this is another, this looks pretty small. I don't think this would take very long to stitch. And we've got pumpkins and ghosts, bats, witches, spiders. So cute. So thanks, Mom. This was a good find. This is, I was telling her on the phone, I was like, it's really discolored on the back. So it looks like there's another book pressed up against it, preserving this patch of color, and then this got distorted in the sunlight or something. And it's got this one little bend, but other than that, it's pretty good. And it's still got all the beads and the charms. So it's just been sitting on somebody's shelf for however many years, I guess. But basically plans for the next few weeks, work on Hannah Campbell, probably get back to the Spring Quaker because I'd like to finish that within the next couple months. I'd like to finish it. And then once I get that done, I'll feel good about starting another big piece, because I don't want to have 3 or 4 or 7 big pieces going. I've got Spring Quaker and Hannah Campbell going right now, and that's it for big projects, and I don't want to do more than that at a time. But then, let's see. Oh, coming up in October, and I mentioned this on my last video, coming up in October, I get to go to Sweater Weather Retreat in Philadelphia, and it's hosted by Rebel Stitcher. And if you go to rebelstitcher.com, I think if you just search Rebel Stitcher, you'll find the website. And I think there are still tickets available for this retreat in Philadelphia. It's October 27th through the 29th. And thank you again to Laura for allowing me to share a hotel room. So I'm looking forward to that. That'll be my first retreat. And there is, if you are going, there is a Facebook group dedicated to that retreat. So if you go onto Facebook and you look up Sweater Weather, and I say it like that because it is SWEATA, WEATHA, Sweater Weather. And if you look up that on Facebook, you should find the private group, and then you can join. And I think it's Colleen will you know, check your name against who she has registered and allow you into the group. And then there's some information posted there. One of the things I was hoping for that then I did get some information on was a freebie table, because I had heard about other retreats like having a freebie table and you just put things on there that you want to rehome. Like, I bought this and I'm never going to use it, but I don't want to just give it to Goodwill. I certainly don't want to throw it away. You want to know that it's going to get used, right? But I did see that there's going to be a freebie table at this retreat. So guess what I did? I already started collecting things that I'm going to take and put on the freebie table. So if you are going to Sweat of Weather retreat, there's like over $100 worth of crap in here. Some pieces of fabric and some Mill Hill kits I'm never going to stitch. And then, yeah, look, I think it is mostly fabric, and then a couple kits. Oh, and then a couple patterns that I'm not gonna stitch. You know, you buy things or you're gifted things and you're like, well, that's nice, but I don't feel the same way I did when I got this, right? So you want to find it a new home. But then other news, yesterday morning at noon, Hobby House opened registration for their Great British Sampler Weekend Comes to America. So this was an event, I guess, in the UK. And Hobby House is hosting a similar event next October. So October of 2024. Registration for that opened yesterday at noon. And it's so funny. I had a hair appointment scheduled at 11:30. And I was like, okay, well, am I going to be done in time? Am I going to be done in time? Or am I going to be like sitting there getting my hair blow dried and trying to do this on my phone? I did get out of my hair appointment. I got in early and then I got out of my hair appointment at... I think I got to the car at like 11:58 and got onto hobbyhouse.com or hobbyhouseneedleworks.com and, you know, waited. And I was like refreshing, and the button didn't come available at noon. And I was like, what is going on? And then at 12:01, the button was there. And so I added the thing to cart, but then I had all this other crap in my cart. And I was like, well, I can't buy all this. So I was like having to delete things and then purchase the deposit for, anyway, I got it. Yay! I got it. So next October 11th through the 13th of 2024, Hobby House is hosting this retreat. And the reason why it was such a big deal is because Nicola Parkman of Hands Across the Sea is going to be the guest speaker, the designer. And of course, there will be lots of goodies that are involved with that. So I was thinking, I don't really need to go. But if I pay the deposit now and then I don't have to pay the deposit, the balance for several more months, and I need to figure out the hotel situation, then do I fly into Rochester? I don't even know, because they're like in upstate New York. So I was thinking this is not something I needed to do, but I'm very excited that I got in. And then I got a message or whatever. Laura let me know that she and Brenda are going and some of their other friends. So at least there will be some, you know, familiar faces there. Well, maybe by then I will have already met them. I haven't met anybody yet, but I'm very excited. Already thinking about, I gotta get stuff done so I have something for show and tell, because I'm sure there's gonna be show and tell. But on the website, it is already sold out. Like, I checked this morning. I mean, I completed my purchase by 12:03. Like, I was on it. But so they're sold out, but I imagine that there is a wait list, because, you know, this is over a year ago, or over a year from now, I should say, and things will change, people will cancel. So if you were unable to register or you just didn't know about it or anything, just, you know, see what you can find out. Maybe you can get on a wait list. Maybe people will cancel and you'll be able to take advantage of that. But I am excited. So I think that is all I have for you today. And let's see, showed you finishes, new start, plans, exciting news. I want to say thank you again to everybody who bothers to watch this or have me on in the background while they're stitching, like all my jibber jabbering. So thank you so much. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you so much for finding me on Instagram and sending me comments and messages and, you know, things like that. I really appreciate it. It's interesting. It's particularly interesting to find out what people think is interesting. Like, I show something or I say something and I think, oh, this is going to be the thing that hits. But then somebody will comment about something else. And I was like, oh, I just said that in passing. And that wasn't really on the agenda. But anyway, so my next Flosstube will be closer to the end of the month. It'll be August 26th, that Saturday. And hopefully I'll definitely have some progress for you. I can't guarantee I'm going to have any finishes, maybe a small or two. We'll see. And maybe some more purchases. Maybe. Maybe. All right. Well, I'll let you guys go off into exploring more Flosstube world and have fun over the next few weeks, and let me know what you guys are stitching. Let me know if I showed something that you really liked or you're curious about. You can find me on Instagram at StitchStitchBead. I am Audrey Marine, and thank you so much for watching. Happy stitching!